Hello, everyone. My name's Hank Suttala,
And I'm Casey McBride.
and we have special guest Angie with us. And this is another episode of Stir Crazy Shamans. Wrong button. That was not the intro that I wanted, but I guess that's because of the energy Angie brings to it. She has that little lively, springly energy. Usually it's
It
just
looked good. It looked good.
it's just like the music. It's like, well, for the morning, maybe that's what people need to wake up and join us. So welcome everyone to another fun episode of Stir Crazy Shamans. We have one of my dear friends, Angie, on with us. She is a registered medium in Lilydale, New York. And I'll let Casey ask some questions because I know her already. And from our last guest, where it was someone I knew, Casey asks better questions when it's someone that he doesn't know, and I do.
Okay, all right.
So
Okay,
because
sounds
he doesn't
good.
know anything about you yet. So like, there's some
Okay.
things that aren't apparent to me that would be interesting to ask. He does ask, and I overlook.
Okay, all right, sounds
So
good.
Casey,
Sounds
where do you
good.
want to start with our awesome conversation?
Yeah, well,
Hi,
first of
Kate.
all, I just wanted to say it's wonderful to meet you. And
Yeah, you too. You too.
thank you. And yeah, so this mediumship is something that's very close to my heart. And I actually recently started a business doing like mediumship, like spirit guide readings.
Okay.
So what I'm curious about is, well, you said you're a registered medium. What exactly does it mean to be a registered medium at Lilydale?
It means that you have to go through 2 years of. Have you ever been to Lilydale?
I have not, no.
Okay, so Lilydale has it's like the largest spiritualist community in the world, which is pretty
Oh,
cool.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretty amazing place. And what they do is all summer long they have like mediums working. They call it the stump. And Hank, you've been there. It's like one of the it's the energy there is amazing, right?
It is, and I'll grab a picture here in a second, and I'll put it up while you talk about it. But and the history behind the stump, like way back when spiritualism first started, all the students would go back into the woods, and there was this big stump that they would stand on to get inspiration. So like the name was quite literal, but they found
Yeah.
that it's like an energy center there. There's like a vortex of energy, and it's a very an amazing place for people to naturally connect
Yeah.
to the realms of spirit.
Yeah, definitely. And so what I had to do is so they do outdoor services there. So you do like a lot of public mediumship. So I had to do a lot of services there. And that's like where I don't know if you've done this. I think you have because you're doing something on YouTube I saw, like where you're picking people to give messages to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So you have to do that. You have to go through a lot of training. Like I've trained probably for years. I've graduated fellowships of the spirit. So you have to have that. So I went through 2 years of doing a lot of outdoor services, a lot of like circles there where I had to give messages to different people, and it had to be accurate. You're scored, on all this stuff.
Oh,
So,
yeah,
and
yeah.
then at the end of 2 years, you have to give readings. They have 30-minute readings and more testing. So yeah,
Hmm.
it was a crazy 2 years. It was good though. It was good. I learned a lot. Yeah, it was
And
good.
another conversation that Angie and I had, I didn't know this, but I guess there's like this one part where you have to give X amount of messages in X amount of time. And like if you don't connect with someone, you just got to pass because it doesn't matter how accurate any of the other stuff was. If you don't get all the messages in within the time frame, you're done.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow, that's wild.
that was big. I actually did pass on one. I went, thank you very much for allowing me to come to you, but I'm going to pass because we weren't connecting like quick. And I think you have 8 minutes to give 3 messages. And big in Lilydale is connecting to somebody on the other side. So you have to bring somebody in and give 3 pieces of accurate evidence, that it's the person. So
Hmm.
yeah,
So
that was
is
big.
so is the focus at Lily Dale then more like when talking about mediumship, is it on like past loved ones? So I guess it
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
Okay. That's interesting because there was something that came up with me. I was hesitant to even call what I do mediumship because I know people do automatically associate mediumship with past loved ones. But Hank was telling me technically, because I'm like the mediator between someone and their spirit guides, that is technically a form of mediumship. So I call it that to just kind of set it aside from like people who are doing tarot and other things like that.
I would 100% agree because either way, you're connecting with somebody on the other side. So you're connecting with a guide and not necessarily a loved one. Although I bet you there are times you're bringing through loved ones too.
They do come in sometimes, but they tend to when they do, they're not like hanging around someone because they have unresolved emotions or issues or whatever. They're always beings that are here to like help the person grow or have some message for them to help them to heal or something like that.
Yeah. Which honestly, I feel like that. I feel like they always have a message, and I feel like that's why they're always here. So Lily Dale's about that, because I didn't always work that way either. Like, to me, the most important part of a reading is the message, and is to bring healing and guidance and help people. So when I could always bring through somebody from the other side, but that wasn't my main focus. I had to make it my focus when I went to Lily Dale. So because Lily Dale is about like the continuity of life, so a lot of people are going there for that reason. So
that makes sense. Very cool.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
More specifically, it's spiritualism. It's a religion, and part of that, like the more traditional churches, it's to prove the continuity of life. There are more liberal spiritualist churches that the message is more important than proving the continuity, and then they're not considered true spiritualists because the message that's uplifting and is healing isn't as important as proving Uncle Joe is still there.
Yeah, that's totally true. Yeah, that's totally true. Although, I mean, they put focus because I had to get the messages right too. But you're 100% right. So to me, I always do readings, and I set my intention that it's for highest and best and what's going to bring healing to the person. So if I bring somebody through, that's great, and that's not always the case, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you do a reading like say for a young kid a lot of times, and you're bringing through their great grandmother or their great great grandmother that they didn't even know who it was, right?
So that's an interesting thing for people in general, because when I first started connecting in the mediumship way through fellowships, well, it was always somebody that the person didn't know first, and then I forget which facilitator it was, but they pointed out that the people who passed before they were born, they have been with them the longest. They're the most anxious and eager to come through because it's like I've never had a chance to talk to them in this way. And
that's true.
So then I always say to them, I'm like, well, it's nice that you're here. However, let someone else come that they're going to recognize. And
I do that too.
We'll get to you next.
Me too. Yeah, we'll talk to you. We'll get to you.
Now, what about? So I'm curious. I oftentimes guides that will come through from me that people don't recognize. For example, I'll be talking to someone and like a Thai fisherman or something comes through, and they're like, "Okay, I have no idea what that's about." But then I ask that being, and they say like, "Okay, well, this is how we knew each other in a past life, etc." So I was wondering if you have much experience with people coming through from past lives that have followed people into this life and doing your
yeah, definitely, because I think we're connected, and I feel like a lot of us, like people that we're really connected to in our lives, we continue on with them and from lifetime to lifetime. And I think sometimes maybe somebody that you were with stays on the other side to act as a guide to you while you're in your next life. So I definitely have that happen. Yeah, and it's really beautiful, some of the stories I get coming through from these guides. Well, they'll show me sort of like a flash, like energy and image of like how these people knew each other. But there's usually, it starts out as some kind of emotional thing, like there was some emotions around the passing in that life. So the being, like whoever passed on first, followed them around to make sure they were safe, and then after that realized they've developed a more like loving connection, and it was no longer about the like worrying about that person. It was more of we've been connected for a long time in spirit, so I just want to help you, even though I may not be incarnate in a physical body. So it's really cool just to and I'm sure you have so many amazing stories. I think that's so cool too, because what that makes you feel like is like you're never alone, right? You always have guides, you always have somebody that's with you. But I think that's pretty awesome. I love that.
Hank, you open your mouth.
I thought Hank was going to say something too. We all stopped, right? Hey, at least we're polite to each other, right?
One of the things when you were saying that we're never alone, in most of the spiritualist traditions, they also have what they call the spirit band, and it's like a band of 7 spirit beings that's with you from before birth till death, and other guides can come and go, but it's like your core 7 that you always have. And that parallels with other traditions, like in shamanism, there's the Yanapek, which is a band of 7 spirit folk or teammates in access. There's these correlations that say, hey, there's these different facilitators in the spirit world. They all have their niches too. So like one is speaking about the spiritualism one, you have the gatekeeper, who is the one that makes sure that nothing comes through that you can't handle. You have the alchemist, you have the healer, all kinds of different energies like that to help you along your way with whatever you need in life.
Yeah. And I think you have different guides that come in depending on what you're doing in your life too. Like as you make different changes, there's different ones that come in to kind of help you with that. What I was going to say too, Casey, with the past life thing is it's interesting when you give messages that are based on a past life, because a lot of times you don't know for sure because we're not consciously aware of our past lives, but you start talking about it and it makes sense to the person because somehow it relates, right?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
You will see a lot of the same themes and things coming through.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. But I was going to say, Hank was talking about the gatekeeper. This is something that I just through doing readings had discovered, but didn't have a name for it. But I would notice that a lot of people, when I would go to enter their space, and it may just be because I have how to put it, like my energy is brighter, stronger, like in somebody that can be kind of alarming to some beings initially. So like a lot of times there'd be either like some animal or like big, like powerful human or something. Someone would come through and like a lot, like, so for example, say it's like a lion. They would come up to me and kind of, like defensive. And then I would always hold my hand out in peace. This is in spirit, I'm doing this. And then they kind of like lick the hand and then they would calm down. And so then through talking to these beings, I would find out that they were like acting like a bouncer, I would say to some people, where like when certain beings would come through, they'd say, okay, is it all right for this being to actually enter my human's space, and then kick them out if not, and then allow them through if so. But I find it really interesting, the parallels between what I just discovered on my own and
it's always really good validation when things like that happen.
I think so too.
With past lives, I find that and you probably knows this type of, sometimes you get someone that wants a reading and they call them fluff and buff readings. Like from their point of view, they've done it all. They have a great life. They don't have anything to work on, and it's really hard to tell them that, hey, you need to work on something, because they'll be resistant to hearing it. But now if you bring it up in a past life that they were a messenger and they didn't watch where they were going and they tripped and fell in the mud and died and all this stuff, and that now it relates to this life because you're doing it the same thing, because you started with the past, it makes them more prone to receive whatever
definitely. You can bring them there to there, because I think if we're here, we have something to work on, right? Otherwise we wouldn't be in this life. But I have people that say that sometimes too, where they kind of think, no, I'm all set, why are you getting a reading? But sometimes it is like, I just had one the other day. And I'm connecting with her, and usually like I'll try to like right away get to the core issue of like, why are they here for a reading? And if I ask for that, I get it. And I'm not really getting anything. I'm like, her life seems pretty okay. And then I realized like it was to connect people on the other side. So you never know. Like sometimes people want that. Sometimes somebody, you do a reading and I've had people come in and say, I want a reading, and can you do me a favor? Like, I don't want to talk to any dead people. I just want guidance, So you never know. Right.
That's one reason when I start, I always ask, like, I just like, I work best with a dialogue. Like, real hard readings for me are the people that come and they don't want to say one word to you the entire time. They give you no validation. It's just like they won't give you nothing. And I'm like, well, if that's the kind of reading you want, then I'm not really the best person, because I work really better with dialogue and stuff like that. So you can ask them, well, what brings you here today? And then immediately you're tuning into the energy, because I say it's your time. It's your half hour or hour. I'm like, how best do we spend it? Where do you want to go with this conversation? And then just dive right in.
Yeah, I agree with you. When there's dialogue, it's better. But and not because you need them to give you anything. It's better because they're more open then, right? Because when somebody comes in, and I have that too, where I don't know if you can see with my arms crossed like this, and they don't want you to see their hand because maybe they have a wedding ring, so they don't want you to see that,
Oh, because they're afraid you're cold reading.
Yeah, right. So, but I know what you mean, like ones like that where people don't say anything. Do you have that, Casey, too? Like where they don't say anything to you?
Well, that's interesting. It was actually, it had become for me, well, okay, I'm going to say a couple of different things that are coming to my head at once. One thing that happened when back in the day when I was first doing a lot of readings, like for kind of the public, is I kind of became addicted to having like the person, I wouldn't even have their name or face. Just like I would be on the internet, and like usually an anonymous name, and I would just have the energy to connect, and I would get really accurate information coming through. And that became like an addiction of mine, where I was like, okay, how accurate can I be with absolutely nothing? and like, you know, I'm not in the same room with them, not seeing their face or anything, you know. But then that kind of was a little detrimental to my growth for a little while, because it was like, all right, well, I got that one, on to the next one. And it was like, I was always like kind of craving more and more, like getting it right or something.
Yeah.
And I realized like I wasn't coming from the right place and doing that.
Well, if you ever wrong, then it's going to hit you that much harder.
Right.
Like if you're focused on validation.
But and then what I was going to say is the other thing. So nowadays, though, when I'm doing like these, where I'm doing my live streams and people are coming in, some people will go to ask this is sort of on the same topic, but they'll go to ask a question, and instead of you know, like, so for example, maybe they're wondering about, okay, well, there's at work, you know, there's these really crappy people, and like I don't really feel like I should be there, so you know, I really want to know, okay, what should I be doing? Should I like leave there? But instead of all that, all they give you is like, am I doing the right thing? It's like, and sometimes I have to explain this. You know, I'm like, you can ask that question, and like, but listen, if you ask a really vague question, you're probably going to get vague guidance. If you ask a specific question, you're going to get a specific answer. But I always say the other thing too is asking questions that open up for a lot of possibility. You know, like, what can I be doing to create more possibility in my career? You know, then that leaves a room for spirit to come through and like give all kinds of amazing guidance. But if in the moment you really want like a yes, you should be doing this, or no, then you need to ask that specific question. And to me, that's sort of the equivalent of like this in a way, them like not wanting to really, I don't know, but maybe it's different.
I know, I hear you. No, I agree with you. But that's kind of that. I feel like that's like the test for us, right? When somebody asks us a question like that, because then we really have to connect to spirit and kind of say, okay, so give me what's highest and best. What does that person most need? Because I've been doing a lot of the public stuff online too, and people just my questions are, I would just like a message.
Yeah.
You know, I'm open to receive a message, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so then you got to go, and you kind of, it is sort of like, oh, really? You know, and it's weird because you don't see them, you just kind of have the question. So I think I like stuff like that though, because I feel like it's challenge. Yeah, it's challenging for us, right? That we kind of have to grow. But I'll go into spirit and say, okay, what's the message that they need, you know? And boy, I hope I'm giving it, but usually they end up being pretty correct. Like, I think if you set your intention, don't you, that if you say, you know, I want to get like what's for highest and best for that person, no matter what, or I want to get a healing message, you always get something. But I agree, when somebody asks a question like possibility, when somebody asks, those are my favorite kind of readings, because somebody comes in and they're really open to guidance, you know, and then you can go a lot deeper.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead. No, you keep doing the open in your mouth, and then
you're already going. Like, I don't want to be like interrupting and things like that. One, I wanted to make mention to people watching, you're welcome to offer your comments. We will definitely see them if you're commenting on Angie's Facebook page or on YouTube. The rest of the way we're streaming, we won't see it on Facebook, so we're not ignoring you. We just don't see your comments. So please go to the YouTube channel and make your comments there. And while you're there, subscribe if you like. No pressure though. But what I was going to mention, and when I was going through the training at fellowships, an awareness that I had around mediumship is like, this one lady came to me and she asked, I want to find out from my grandpa if she approves of my boyfriend, because I can't marry anybody that grandpa wouldn't approve of. Now at fellowships, we always learn, you go to source first for the message. You go get the message. So the message that I got is, oh, cool, it's her soulmate. Yes, she got her soulmate. Now I bring in grandpa next, and he goes, no. Absolutely not. And I'm like, what's this? And what I found is that you can tap into people's consciousness on different levels. And I was picking up astral level grandpa who was a jerk, and nobody would have been good enough. But the real truth of it is, it was a soulmate. And if grandpa had been alive, she probably would have missed it, because he would have been so against it. So do you have any, have you had that experience too, where you can find yourself tapping into different levels of consciousness for that person in spirit?
Yes. Yeah, I have. I think I always try to always connect like as high as I can. Like that's kind of always my intention, because I want to get the purest information for them, because I don't want to give somebody. I feel like healings are and I know readings, I mean, are for healing purposes, and I want to give them like the highest and best. So I always try to go high. Don't you too?
No, I do.
Oh, yeah.
That's where the thing is. I got the message from source that yes, it's spirit, but they wanted to hear from Grandpa. When I tapped into Grandpa, I got conflicting data, but both were correct, because Grandpa would have said no.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting? Because so when they're here and then they cross over to the other side, like I've heard Elaine Thomas, our teacher, say from fellowships, say that, if they were negative or cranky and didn't give good advice when they were here, why do you want to get their advice on the other side? It's going to be the same, right? It's going to be the same. Yeah.
Well, depending on where you're connecting to, like the astral level version of you or the highest self version of you.
Sure.
Yeah. So that's why I always start high and then kind of bring down. Now, we do have a question from Faith about developing skills. When developing your skills, what mental roadblocks did you come across and how did you get over them? So as you were doing your training and everything, did you have any stumblings and how did you overcome it?
Probably like a big one was fear, really. It's fear, because you're talking to somebody and you don't know if what you can't see it. It's not black and white. So you really have to trust like inside yourself or what's coming through from spirit. So I feel like fear was part of mine. Was that yours, Hank? Part of yours too, Hank?
Oh, absolutely.
And Casey, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's what when you go through a program like at fellowships, you go through a 2-year thing. Over that 2 years, with the amount of homework you have to do, there comes a tipping point where you are fearful, but I need to get my readings done in order to move on. And at some point, you just get so much validation that you start to trust, and that fears you just kind of tip the scales, and instead of being pulverized in fear, you're feeling excited and ready. And
yes, definitely. The more you do it, like I remember saying that to Elaine, and she said, "Just keep doing." We had to do 70 readings a year. Remember? That was a lot of
and healings, 140
and people had to fill out like a form and tell you how you did. So, but I thought that was one. And the other thing for me too is I kind of learned. If I say to somebody, does this make sense? Like say I'm giving a reading, does this make sense? And the person says no, and then you kind of feel like, oh, no, this isn't good. But I feel like the way spirit talks to us, they can't talk to us like we talk to each other. So it's coming in, it's mind communication or telepathic communication. So they're showing you a picture or giving you words or giving you feelings. And I feel like we're interpreters kind of.
That's actually something when I teach people to communicate with their spirit guides, that's a big thing I have people focus on in the beginning, is how the communication is happening. Because I think some people have the misconception that like when I'm giving a message that comes through, like I'm saying it in words, that this being was talking to me in English. And they weren't. Even if it comes through very clearly as English, I have people pay attention. There is a very specific feeling that happens before the words, even when in your own like dialogue. So if there's example, you're thinking like, I could really go for a taco. Before you think that, there's a super specific feeling or maybe even an image or something that comes before the words, I would really like a taco. And then that turns into, I would really like a taco in your head. So in spirit, we get the energy that then becomes this really specific feeling that our minds translate, and then it's translated into English. So we're,
true.
So then same thing when we're getting the visions and everything, that's energy that's coming through that our minds are then, interpreting as the images and all of that.
Yeah. I love the way you put that. That's really true. That's exactly it. It's almost like it's coming in a different way. And then we have to interpret, like, it's like coming in a foreign language in a way, or a feeling. And I think this too, like every one of us gets it different ways. Like when I first started out, for me, everything was visual. So I would do a reading and it was like I wished I could have, it was like watching a movie, with my eyes closed or open. And then what I learned, like to get more accurate, I started to pay attention to the feelings that are there and the words that are there too, and got more accurate with that.
I get a mix. Some beings that come through communicate in a way that's like, okay, that's easy to translate as English. And then a lot of like animal guides, for example, like animal guides for me almost always communicate in visions. Mm-hmm. But then I'm like, if I ask the spirit, like if I give a vision where I'm like, I have no idea what that meant, and then I ask, can you give me some words to help explain that? then they'll help me to kind of explain the vision. But it's amazing too what you were saying about kind of being afraid of asking like, does that make any sense and all that. There are some times when the person will ask a question and then I'm explaining this vision that the being showed me, and I'm like, I have no idea what that would ever relate to. And then sometimes I'm like, okay, I'm just giving it because Spirit gave me the message. And they're like, oh my gosh, I'm crying. That was so like, I know exactly. And, but then other times, this happened just this past week where I did one for someone, and it was just like, the message was like, how would that make sense for anyone in any situation? And I gave the message and they were like, I have no idea what that means. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So then 2 days later, they caught my live stream 2 days later, and they were like, it didn't make sense when you gave me the message, but then the next day something happened and it was like boom and it clicked. She's like, it was amazing.
All the time. All the time. Yeah, I know it happens all the time. And I think it's true. You just have to give it, and if they say it doesn't make any sense, I'll ask Spirit for more. If I don't get more, I just say, okay, I'll leave that with you. Maybe it'll make sense in a day or two. And a lot of times you're right. That happens to me too, that they call up or they see something and they're like, I know exactly what you mean. It's kind of like amnesia or something that they have,
It's amazing.
The roughest thing as a reader when people aren't able to take it, and then you start getting into self-judgment. Well, was I right? Was that coming from me, from ego, not from Spirit? I don't know if I told you the story of what happened to me at Church of the Angels once. It was when they had the West Side Church for just a little bit, and I went up to give public messages, and Spirit fortunately gave me a heads up it was about to do this. They said, you're going to give the messages to this person and everything's going to be 100% wrong, and that's how it's supposed to be. And I'm like, what?
Really?
Yeah, and so I get up.
I'm not doing it.
So I did 2 messages. It was all good. And then I go to him because I know the Spirit told me I needed to. And I'm giving the message, nope. He came up to me afterwards and said, I've always wanted to do this work, but I never thought I was good enough. But he's like, but if a professional, he said I was a professional like you, can make mistakes like that, maybe I can do it too. And I'm like, really? So it was totally the message he
Isn't
needed.
that cool? So that was the message. Like you never know. You never know what the message is, right?
You never know. So even like wrong information, maybe for whatever it is, that is the information for their highest and best at the moment. And not to judge even when you're wrong, not to judge that you gave 100% what was needed in that moment.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Want to hear about my first professional reading?
Yes.
It wasn't good, Okay, so I did all my practicing, and then I thought, okay, I'm all set. I made a reading room in my house, and I'm all set to have my first person come. And I was a nervous wreck, and they come walking in, and I said to Spirit, give me a picture. Actually, this ended up being a real good thing for me, although it was bad, but it ended like yours, it ended up being good. So I said, Spirit, show me a picture so I have someplace to start. I don't even know what to say, So I see the beach. So I start talking to this person, and I said, I see the beach, and and I'm describing the sand and all this stuff, and whatever else I said, does that make sense to you? And the lady said, no, absolutely not. I hate the beach. I hate every single thing about the beach. I would never go. I'm not sure why I came here. That's what you're talking to me about, And so there's a part of me that I wanted to leave. It's like but it was my house, so I had to stay. I had to stay. So there I was, But what was good though is that then I remembered all the stuff, right? And I said to Spirit, give me more. And I realized, for me, the beach, to go sit by the water and the beach means relaxation, and it means usually that's what I'm thinking about a lot. If I'm stressed, I need to go sit by the water. So I started talking to her about that, kind of my memory. And then I added the words. Spirit started giving me words and the feelings that came. And she went, that's why I'm here. You're finally on track. So yeah, I think it was funny. That was terrible. I kind of felt like quitting then, but I didn't though. It taught me that's when I really learned about the interpreting part of it that we were just talking about,
Well, so I have a question then. So since I'm talking to 2 people who are mediums as well. I know for me, it depends. It's different. Now I'm different now, but back in the day, I would give I would do all these readings, really accurate, specific information would come through. And then I'd go to do a reading for someone, maybe I knew more or something. And maybe the message, at least at first, they'd be like, all right, that doesn't make sense or whatever. And like I give 50 readings that were like amazing, and like how could you know that and spot on and all that, and then the one that was like didn't really go that well, I'm like, oh, and you just feel so like deflated after that. And, not so much anymore, but like it sounds like same thing. Like you've probably given tons of readings before that were like amazing and accurate, but
absolutely. And then you get that one. I don't know. I think some of it, like if it's for somebody I think it's harder to read somebody because you're attached to it, right? Go ahead.
I was going to say it's harder to like that's why part of the reason I like having like nothing when going on a person is that I don't have any filters for that person, and I can just really allow the information to come through.
And when we were going through fellowships, you were allowed to give every student, like you could do a practice reading with another student, and you could do them, I think, twice per year. I forget.
Yeah, I think it goes twice. Yeah.
And I didn't like doing that at all. I wanted to give nobody in class a reading. In fact, I think I only had like 5 people I did homework with, because I found it much easier and lighter to connect with other people that I didn't know.
Yeah, it's like you could just kind of let it go, and you're not attached to it, right?
Yeah, not attached at all. And also, but I think what probably tripped me up more, because I remember one reading specifically that I was giving a practice reading, and they were like critiquing me through the reading. And it wasn't so much that my inability to connect or not, but it was that I was aligning and agreeing with their expectation what the reading should be. Because in their mind,
that's true. That's true.
And I'm exceptionally empathic. That's like one of my strongest things. And so like I'm picking up on the expectation of what the reading would be, and that's not how I work, and it trips me up. So I found it really it's just much more easy, greater sense of peace to read people I didn't know.
Yeah. Oh no, I think so too. But don't you think this? So I mean, some readings you sit down and you connect with the person like right away, and those are usually pretty easy readings because you're connected. So somehow I feel like you can connect to their guides easier. And then you get people that like just even in life, you don't connect with everybody. I can usually find rapport with everybody, but you don't. And I think if you don't connect with somebody as well, that might be harder to do the reading. Don't you think? Did you think that could have been with that one, Casey?
Yeah, no, definitely. And I was actually going to ask that I don't know if you've ever come across people who maybe like they know what you do, so they're like interested, and they know that you're successful, and that people really benefit from the messages that come through, but they themselves are just like super skeptical, and like maybe they're asking for a reading more out of like, is this really real? Like, are they just full of crap? And they're wanting to like more of you to like prove something rather than actually benefit from a message. And how do you handle that when you sense?
Those are tough. Those are tough. I had a lady that she came in and she wanted to connect with somebody on the other side, and she wanted a specific information, like so I think I can't remember, it was like a man that came through, and I kept seeing like diamond rings flying by my face and rubies and all this gemstones, and she said nope, that's not it, and she kept saying no to everything I said, and we get done, and she goes, well, what I wanted to know what was the specific item that she had on the kitchen counter that looked like this. And I said, okay, so the diamond rings, and none of that made any sense. She goes, well, no, it did. Actually, he owned a jewelry store. So that's kind of why I saw that. But she was saying no to me because she wanted one specific piece of information. Yeah. And at the time, I'm like, oh, my God, I'm not connected at all. I'm kind of thinking inside because she's saying no to everything. And she wanted that one thing. And you can't guarantee that you're going to get that one thing because it's interpreting. And that might not be what the spirit's showing you. And,
It's like when you look to actualize or manifest something in your life, the universe might bring it to you in a very different way. And if you're not open to receiving it, however it comes, then you might miss it. And this is a great example of that. We did have a question, and we'll kind of loop it into what you were, how you learned and everything. How can my gifts turn on and off? So actually, let me study this guy because apparently I can't read this morning. How come my gifts turn on and turns right off? Then I'm nervous if I feel a message. So as you're like learning to do the message work, like I can remember like there were some days where like you almost had to have a ritual, or you had to do something very specific to connect. And then if you're up at inspiration stump, the second you started to waver, like it could be gone. So any tricks or tips of people stepping into their gifts, if it's feeling like on and off, and the message is coming through, what can you do to put yourself at ease in order to actually receive the message?
I like what you said about the ritual, like letting yourself relax. I always try to, like, I do deep breathing before a reading, or, I try to meditate. So I feel like, so I'm already kind of connected to spirit. I think practicing, like, you have to just keep on practicing, and you have to keep doing it as much as you can, because then you grow and your confidence grows. And then it's about trusting it, and then I feel like you just give it, and I think learn. To me, like, the more classes I took, the better I feel like I got at it, because every class, even though sometimes, like, you can take class after class, you might learn some of the same things, but every teacher teaches it a different way, and you get tools for your tool basket, so you can walk in, and I feel like have more trust in what you're giving. Did I answer that?
Yeah, I think
did. Yeah.
Written really well. And the other thing that I would say that the thought that came to me as you were talking is, don't forget, we talked about that spirit band earlier and all the support you have in spirit.
Yeah.
So ask for help, like, just, like, spirit, what my guides, angels, whoever's around me, what can I ask of you to help me to connect and not be nervous to receive this message?
You know what? I forgot about this. Sometimes I forget, like, about the stuff I did in the beginning. But I remember, like, I did that, and I connected to my guides, and I did meditations that allowed me to kind of know who they were. And I used to do that before every reading, is I'd sit down and go, okay, are you guys here? And I kind of see them. It's like, okay. So, and they'd say, don't worry, you're not alone. We're all walking into the reading room together, and yeah, so, but that actually really did make me feel a lot better, because I knew that I had them with me, and I was going to get my information. And I remember Elaine saying this, like, if we show up, like, we're there, we set our intention, and we want to give a healing message, like, spirit shows up every time.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's
Every
one reason, like, the prayer that we say at the beginning, and I'll say it for everybody, and I slightly tweaked it because I use it for healings too, not just readings. As we open the door to communication and healing in the unity of the Holy Spirit, the great I am presence of the universe, we give thanks, for we know that the word spoken and the experience received is full of your grace, wisdom, truth, love, and understanding of the highest. Yeah. So before each time that we're connecting, just by saying an affirmation like that, you're opening up to the highest vibration. And what is there to be nervous of in the light?
That's right. Oh, that's so true. And so you feel better because you bring that light down, you say that prayer, and you feel better automatically. That's really true. And that kind of, then it's like, I'm connected. I've set my intention. I want messages for healing purposes, highest and best. And it comes. I've thought so many times, like, oh no, this is going to be the one time I'm going to do a reading, and there's going to be nothing, nothing. So, but right? I mean, you think that when you're doing it, but it's never happened.
Well, it happened to me once with nothing, and I've told this story on a previous stream. But I sat down. I had just a pair of ladies came in, and I did the first reading, and it was fine. And now the second one came in, and I just didn't feel a connection. And then I always ask, one of the questions I ask, is it for my hands? And I get, nope, don't do the reading. I'm like, okay. And then I'm like, well, what should I say? And I got, you don't really want to be here, do you? They're like, nope. I'm like, your friend just drug you along for a reading, didn't they? They're like, yep. I'm like, you don't have to do this. And they're like, great. And this time I did the reading, we just didn't do it. And as we were leaving Goddess Elite, which is the store I was working at, they turned around, looked at me, and said, if and when I am ready for a reading, you're the one I'm going to come to. So even in the willingness to say, this isn't going to happen right now, that is exactly the message. It might have been the thing that opened them up for later. They still haven't come for a reading, but we still got lifetime left.
But you never know. Like, there might be a day that they do. You never know. You never know.
So you were saying, Angie, about things you kind of forgot you did in the beginning, but all the kind of work you put in. For me, a big part of my training before I really started to do readings was actually just to learn how to enter into that this alpha and theta brainwave frequencies. And I spent a lot of time just meditating and learning to instantly and effort. And it was through hypnosis is how I learned how to really do self-hypnosis. So I learned how to do that. Yeah. And so, I mean, for a long time, and there are a lot of people that they do have to go through in the beginning, this kind of ritual of relaxing and getting there. Whereas I can just boom, and then I can exit my body and I'm traveling out in spirit in an instant. So I really think, but now there are so many tools online with like binaural beats and like just different meditations for like lowering and like self hypnosis videos and all that. So really like learning about the brain waves frequencies it can be really helpful because it is if you're like way up here and you're like, in a kind of stressed out or like more hyper focused, conceptual state, you're going to have a much harder time connecting and getting that information coming through than if you have a lot more access to the subconscious and spiritual in those lower brainwave frequencies.
That's really true. And I think this too, like would help me is like we were taught with fellowships is you had to have faith and know you were connecting to spirit and you could do that. But then I actually studied also with Sharon Klinger, and I know you know her too. And I liked what she taught because she taught things just like you just said, and it was here's why you can do it, and and you can connect to like this part of your brain or connect higher, and that helped me because I used to think like because when I started doing readings it was spontaneous, like I was doing readings before fellowships, and I didn't understand why. It's like, why can I do this? And I would hear, just have faith. You can do it. You're right. This is a good thing, and it was, but I wanted to know why, so that helped me tremendously because I felt like I went in with, okay, I'm connecting to this part of my brain and, I'm going higher and everything that you just said, that helped. That's really true.
It's worth mentioning now, too, for those of you who are stepping into your gifts, I believe because of the bless and the mess of COVID-19 is Angie has started doing a lot of her stuff at her center virtually, including, I think, on Saturday mornings, you have a development circle.
Yes.
If I remember correctly. So if you're in the Buffalo area, once they reopen and everything, Angie runs the development circle. We have them virtually out here in Cleveland, too, through Goddess Elite. So there's definitely resources for you if you are looking to step into your gifts. Take advantage of. Casey teaches stuff like that. I teach stuff like that. So if you're watching, check out our websites and check that out. And also I wanted to mention while I'm thinking about it, I'm hosting a class for Angie tomorrow. Now the date on this little banner is not correct, but we're basically doing an evening of spirit communication. She's going to do gallery readings. We had to reschedule it from the 25th and now it's tomorrow. And that's going to be at 7. Oh, no, I forgot. Shoot.
6.
It is 6.
It might be. Is it 6? I think it's 6.
No, yeah, it is 6 o'clock.
6 or 7? No, it's 6.
Yeah, it's 6. And basically, we're going to have everybody in a room, and she's going to go through and actually give live messages. So if you're interested in that, you can go to holistichealthandhealing.net. And if you're watching this on a replay sometime way off in the future, check out the website. We're always having something. So either holistichealthandhealing.net or Angie's website, I'll put it up again, is santoshaholisticcenter.com. You can find out all the stuff on her website as well for whatever's going on whenever you happen to watch this.
Well, yeah, no. I keep thinking. I think we might have talked about this. We talked about so many things when COVID first started and we started doing everything virtual. We should do an intuitive development class.
Yeah,
like a beginner, just to get like tools.
Yeah, we can definitely schedule one. I think we had one, and then we just didn't. We were so excited to start working together, we didn't give it enough time to populate.
Yeah.
But anyhow, let's see. Looks like someone has a question here. Having a ritual to get into the right side of your brain gets you there, and asking your team for support. Absolutely. What my anchor for at fellowships, one of the things that they taught, one was the meditation part of it. So every single time before class, every morning we would meditate, and they would recommend that you would go through meditation at least once or twice a day when you weren't at school. And it's kind of like heaving the boulders, especially the way that they taught how to do it. It was like an inner work meditation. As you did it and did these sutras, it would bring up everything that didn't match love and health and healing and stuff like that, and you would be able to deal with it. And the more boulders you heave out of there, the easier time you have to connect to that God within, to that spark of divinity, and then get the information. So it's all about refining that, and the more you refine it, the easier time you have connecting without a ritual. But in the meantime, rituals, binaural beats, any of that stuff is a great tool, but then to learn to do it without the tool.
Right. Totally. You're totally right. Yeah. That's a good way to put that. But I agree. I remember that in fellowships too, when they told that I think we had to meditate. I think that was a requirement, right? Yeah. That every day you had to meditate. Every day. And I remember thinking like, how am I going to have time to do that? On top of everything else I'm doing. But it was so much easier to connect when I meditated, because you're right. You get through the boulders and you connect to yourself. And you know what that question just was too. I remember Sharon Klinger talking about that. That was one of her exercises, was the right side of your brain is your intuition, the left side of your brain is your logic. And that if you, like, before you start connecting intuitively, if you connect to the right side of your brain, it's like you're right there. And that's true. That actually helps a lot.
Absolutely. And for those of you who don't know the name Sharon Klingler, you can find a lot of her content on Hay House. Starbringer, I believe, is her website. She has a lot of different books. In fact, I remember there was like a 8 CD thing about developing intuition, and it was awesome.
It was awesome.
I got so much out of it. I was doing
Me
that.
too.
I was taking, especially, I won't spoil it, because if you ever have a class with Angie, I don't want anybody to know it, but there's this amazing exercise where you do a writing on a piece of paper, and then you trade with a partner, and then at the very end, there's like this amazing surprise. And so, like, I'm building up all we'll have to do.
Billets. Oh, we got to do that. Yeah, yes, we'll do it. Yeah. I love that. That's a good one too. I love her stuff. It's really, really good. Yeah. And I have that 8 CD, and I have her next one too. So
I want to make sure too, because I know you had another thing to do a little bit today. You were good to go till 9 or last 9 or what?
No, 9. No, 9. I got to be on. Yeah. Okay. I'm doing some readings for I have a radio show thing at 9, and then readings for some people in China.
How much was that? If you do have
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
Now is the time to ask, because I have 2 here, and then I don't know how many more we'll get to. So if you have a question, ask now. And if we have so many that we can't get to them, it just means we'll have to have Angie back on.
Do it again. Oh, I love it. Yeah.
So Faith says, when I have done journeying, there is a point after a minute when I feel this energy shift, almost as if I'm falling into another world. Is that the brainwave you're talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not. So what I'm talking about are they're actually it's like just the frequency at which, like, the neurons are firing, like how fast the cycles are that we can measure. So no, that, like, I mean,
was this a reference to binaural beats? Was this
brainwave frequencies?
Yeah. Is this? I'm wondering if Faith is asking about that, about the brain. Was it brainwaves that you were talking about with this? Like,
yeah. No. So she's okay. Hold on. Let me pull this back up. Sorry, I have something to look at. Okay, so what you may be feeling falling into another world could possibly be you like exiting your body, entering the realms of spirit, and that may coincide with, that may happen when you enter into a certain brainwave frequency state. But the brainwave frequencies you may not necessarily be able to, like, it's not something you fall into. They're just a measurement of how fast the neurons are firing in your brain. That's what I was talking about when I meant brain.
Or another good way to look at it is the brainwave frequency being at a certain thing creates the portal or the window or the threshold that you can choose to go through or to access to get the information. But it by itself in nature doesn't necessarily make you go anywhere.
Right.
And then the other one. Oh, did you have something to add to that?
Yeah, I was just going to say, because I feel like that sometimes when I go into a meditation and they're not always, some are real deep, some not. And I agree with you, when you listen to binaural beats, that helps for sure. But I have felt like that, where almost I feel like I'm shifting kind of and connecting with something else. So I have felt like that too.
When you do feel, if you have an energy like that, you can actually ask Spirit, just like we as readers ask for more information. You ask Spirit, cool, what is this? What can I do with it?
It's always asking, yeah.
How can I create more possibility with it, and those types of questions? Or what guide in the spirit world knows what this is that can help me with this?
True.
That's a fun one.
Yeah, it is. I love that too. Yeah.
And then we have Kylie. She was saying that she's on and off with her mediumship. I would love to have better tools. I also get nervous prior to readings, but I move through it and goes well most of the time. One thing I would like to say to that, like, if, like, say you take Angie's gallery readings, or anytime you see her doing the work online, watch what mediums do. Like, one thing that we learned at fellowships is don't get caught up with the story of your instructor. Like, you look at what's their posture. Where are they looking? Like, if you look at Lily Dale mediums at the stump, almost all the time, if they're getting a visual, they're looking up.
Yes.
If they're like, oh, I'm hearing, you see them going left and right. So you can start to map out the body, which is an antenna for getting this information. What are these mediums doing when they're getting the information that they're getting? And if you mimic that, you can help to recreate the same thing. So check out Angie when she's doing her readings. Like, she's really good with it. Like, you'll see what she's doing, and you can start to incorporate that for yourself.
That's really true. And actually, that's another way to learn too, is watch other people work. You know, I've done that a lot. And you're right, because sometimes a medium, you're saying that, and I'm like, do I do that? I guess I do, you know. I don't even realize I do it, but it's true. You're right.
Yeah, we're creatures of habit and mimicking, you know.
Yeah, so. yeah. No, it's true. It's true. I know. I'm looking forward to tomorrow.
Yeah. And for people who don't know what gallery readings are, basically what we're going to do is we'll have a Zoom room. and Angie will connect. And sometimes we talk a little bit first and offer a little bit of knowledge or something like that. I don't know. That's how I work. Maybe Angie does something
Yeah.
similar.
No, we will. Yeah.
And then basically she'll either do, hey, may I come to you? Or I got the spirit who can relate. There's two different pools of it. Sometimes for gallery, it's more exciting to do the second one because like everybody's like, oh, is the next going to be my spirit? It keeps people engaged. But you can do it either way. And basically, even if the message isn't for you, like 20 people got messages and you don't happen to get one, which I think right now with how many people we have, everybody would get one more than likely. But
they will.
But the messages that come through, the information is maybe relevant for everybody. So that doesn't mean that you didn't get a message. I know everybody there gets, if she gives 20 messages, everybody gets 20 messages because all 20 have a medicine for you if you're willing to receive it.
Happens every single time. And I think when you work in public that way, spirit does that on purpose, right? That they want to reach more than one person. So yeah, definitely that happens.
And I got to ask you guys, is it just me, like looking in the background, I keep catching like something like almost walking in the background of our videos. Have you caught this? And every once in a while, one of the videos actually fades in or out, like something walked in front of you.
No, I gotta go back and watch that. I mean, that could be, right? That could be with the kind of work that we all do, right? Who's here?
I saw it maybe 2 or 3 times, and now this 4th time, I'm like, all right, now I'm saying something because
I wasn't thinking of it in that way, but I was seeing some random stuff moving. I just thought it was pixelated, whatever. But who knows? Maybe both.
Yeah. There was one episode Casey and I were doing where an entity showed up, and I wasn't touching the board. I don't even know how we could have done it, but we literally just switched spaces on the thing. I'm like, what is this?
Really? Oh
it was bizarre.
That's pretty bizarre. Yeah. Hey, they do that. They do stuff like that. They want us to know they're with us, right? So they like to have a little fun too. A little fun.
Great. And we are, like, Joe has a question, but I don't know if we can really field it here or not because it's more specific to him. But we can maybe speak to it generally so other people can gain awareness around it. He says, am I contacting my deceased mom or others when they appear in my dreams if it seems so real when I wake? You can definitely have connections in the dream world. Oh, yeah. At first glance, I thought that question was going somewhere else. But what I would say is whenever you're dealing with the spirit, ask truth, who are you? Because there are, we focus on the light and we have a lot of light in our lives, but there's a few little entities out there that may be a little trickier than others. But if you ask the energy of truth, they either tell you the truth or energetically you get to know that they're lying. So when you're starting to deal with things showing up, it's a great little tool to make sure that you're dealing only with things of the highest and best and setting that intention every day. I'm looking only to work with entities that are for and beings of light that are for my highest good and that are a possibility in my life, and focus on that. But
if you set your intention with that and you're strong on that, that's what you'll get. I'm really strong on that. That I always want it to be positive and for healing purposes and highest and best, and that's almost always what I get. And I think in dreams, I feel like I connect like with my mom all the time in dreams because I'll wake up. If I wake up, I'll know who I connect with or guides because I'll have information. And that kind of comes from practicing too, that you get right up and it's like, what dreams did I have and what guidance did I receive?
Do you use Elaine's affirmation before you go to bed still? Or maybe she didn't give it to
you? I know it.
It was.
I haven't done it in a while. I know. Go ahead. What is it? Tell me.
It's I give thanks for I know as my physical body is asleep and receiving healing, I am learning and serving on the highest levels of life, waking up in the morning, refreshed and renewed, remembering all that I have learned that is for mine or anyone else's highest good.
Wow.
So if you
Hank, write that down. I don't even think I have that anymore because I used to do that all the time, and that's true. And I remember like Elaine. I've had dreams where like Elaine's in my dream, and I feel like pushing me to do something, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I did set my intention. I knew I was helping somebody last night when I tell her about it." So.
And I love it, Casey. Look at this from Shirley. Before I thought Grandma Sutalo was behind Casey, and it kind of freaked me out. Oh, that might be.
That could be. You never know, right?
No, because we have a ton of, and I will write that down for you and send it.
Yes, yeah.
I got a little journal. I wrote down all the good stuff in there. I got all the NLP stuff. I got a bunch of wonderful little.
We learned some good stuff at fellowships. That's for sure.
And a shout out
that's cool.
If you are looking to well, if you're in the Buffalo area, Angie has a development program too. But we both went through Fellowships of the Spirit. You can take Spiritual Insight Training 1, Spiritual Insight Training 2. Those are kind of standalone things. And then if you want more, there's a 2-year program that both myself and Angie have gone through. And it's not just learning mediumship. It's learning, they call it prophecy because it's connecting to source, reinforcing with spirit. And that's a difference in some mediums. Is not some mediums only connect to astral level grandpa who might have been a jerk. When you go through fellowships or a similar program, you connect with source and then you reinforce with the spirit, so you're getting the highest information with the support from your loved ones.
And and you get those tools. Like I don't know what I would do without my tools, to know to connect that way. So totally agree.
I'm not sure which quote are you looking for. Can you write that quote in comments? Or are you looking for that affirmation? We can do that for sure.
She's probably talking about that. You know what, Hank? I gotta get off. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Go ahead. Casey and I will wrap up here. Just talk about your class for a moment, and we would love to have you.
Thank you. I would love to come back.
Awesome.
Yes, that was wonderful.
I'd love to come back. Thank you. Yeah,
awesome conversation.
I love coming on. This was a lot of fun. Yeah. I've been watching you guys. I love your shows.
Thank you.
I was just joking with you. Like, you're shortchanging me. We had 5 more minutes, Angie.
I know.
No, you got to get centered before reading. I got it. I just wanted to give you a little Pukli fun.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. All right, you guys. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. It was very.
Oh, sorry.
Oh no! You jerk. Cut her off mid-sentence, why don't you?
No, but today we'll, for a few more minutes, field any other questions and kind of wrap up. We didn't want to rush everybody off because Angie had to go. But we will. I will write down that affirmation, and I'll also give you the prayer to connect that we use at fellowships. We'll get that over to them too, so they can post it. And then Kylie was saying she had a mind-altering experience when she saw a sentient being transformed as crystals. It was fluidy, and this is right up your alley, Casey. I can already tell. Colors I've never seen, and the energy was so loving. I knew I was in a different dimension. Completely threw me off. It was amazing experience and pushed me more on my spiritual path. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing. A lot of the guides come through to Casey in ways like that.
Yeah, well, that could have been. It's like a lot of the star beings I connect with are there's actually one particular kind of star being that comes through a lot, and their bodies are almost like these fluid, complex, geometric, crystal-looking like bodies. So it may have been one of those beings that you were connecting with, and yes, their energy is very powerful and very loving. So it could have been, but there are that's the thing is when we do learn to really start to connect and see spirit in that way, there is just so much beauty everywhere on the planet. There's vast, like you said, it was a mind-altering, amazing experience that pushed you more on your spiritual path. That stuff is all around all the time, and when we open ourselves and allow ourselves to receive that, that can be your daily experience all the time to see that stuff. How amazing would that be?
An interesting question from Shirley. She wants to know why her grandma's hanging out with Casey. Well, Casey's and my guides and spirit people have, especially as we started doing some of this other work together, they've been having like a party in spirit. My guides are over there messing with them and vice versa. And also for me, like spirit people that have passed at a very young age that I don't have as conscious of remembering of, I find that it's harder to pick up on those energies sometimes because they're with you all the time, and you might be kind of like a fish in water. Like, what's water? I don't know. It's everywhere. You don't have a reference point. So it may just be her letting us know that she's there, because if she was with me, I might not be as aware of the energy because she's she's there all the time. So because it was with Casey, it got noticed. And that's my interpretation of that. I don't really have an answer. That just is how I would how I look at it personally.
Cool. And then Kylie just says yes. Yes, I love it. Yeah, and if you're interested, Kylie, or anyone who's interested in learning more about that, reach out to me. I do one-on-one I do call them spirit guide communication lessons. So I'd love to teach people about that. That's a big passion of mine.
I don't know. It says Grandma was picking up your socks.
That's right.
Okay.
Oh, there are socks back there.
I just for anybody who's interested, a little bit later, 10 o'clock today, or if you're watching this on the replay, you'll have to go fishing for it. But I am going to be doing a holistic highlights episode. Not nearly as fun of a topic, but we're going to be talking about vaccinations with Dr. K on the Holistic Highlights channel. And then tomorrow, we have Paul DeFranco on accessing the Akashic Records. We're going to have him on at 9.
Did I know about
tomorrow? That? No, you didn't. You just found out.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so Paul DeFranco, he's taught at Lilydale. He teaches hypnotherapy, past life regressions, accessing the Akashic Records. So we're going to have him on tomorrow.
That'll be cool.
Be a fun little conversation. So awesome. A couple final comments. Yes, I was at a Reiki retreat sitting around a group of women. No herbs, just shifted to that experience.
Yeah, you don't need to take anything to experience incredible beauty and powerful.
It's so much fun too. Okay, you're right. She says, "Okay, thank you."
Yes.
Cool. Any final thoughts?
If this stuff interests you, don't be intimidated. I had someone reach out to me and say I gave them a reading, and that when they heard the being that came through, I think it was a goddess that came through for them, they were like intimidated to even ask a question. And just know that Spirit's here to help us. They want to see us grow, and maybe you're not really afraid to get into it. Maybe that, like Hank says, it's more of a you're feeling excited and ready because there is a sense of.
I got the beam for it. Feeling excited already.
There's just this, we get the feeling intuitively that there's an infinite amount of experience out there for us, and that can feel a little overwhelming in the beginning, but don't let that stop you from experiencing the vast beauty of spirit. Just start asking questions, start connecting, reach out to someone, take a class or whatever. I can guarantee you that if you really are open and really proceed with like an open mind and heart and just really allow yourself to receive the experiences, learning to connect, communicate with spirit, all of this is going to be one of the coolest things you've ever done. So I recommend it for anyone.
Yeah, and for mine, remember Angie's website. Check that out. And she has a class tomorrow. So please, if you are looking for another experience and to see Angie in action, well, you can go back to previous live streams we've done. Angie and I did public message work a couple Mondays ago. We were just brought someone on screen with us and just gave messages. So it was a lot of fun. But you can see kind of how she works on one of those. And she's going to be doing the class tomorrow at 6 o'clock at virtually Holistic Health and Healing. It's a Zoom room, so you can sign up and then you get the link to participate in that. And I was going to do the same thing with Casey. I was going to do fear, so I got to shift it up. So I'm going to go with another acronym of fear: forgetting every available resource. You have all these spirit people. You have your gatekeeper in spiritualism. You have from your Yanapek Yamaru. You have all this wonderful connection in spirit that's going to make sure that nothing comes through that you don't have a tool to handle. And if you think you can't handle it, then I'm wondering if you maybe haven't asked a question: who could I engage here to help with this? And to make sure that you're co-creating with the universe rather than trying to create against the universe, I guess is a way to look at it. So cool. Thank you everybody for coming through today and
coming through.
Yeah. For coming through today. That would be like trying to click where I need to get to the outro, right? No, but thank you for being on with us. Please, if you haven't already, take a moment, subscribe to the YouTube channel. It definitely helps us out. And if you're going to go back and watch the full thing on a replay, if you're on Facebook, please start a watch party. That would definitely help us out, spread the awareness of our channel, and help Angie out to let people know about what she does and all the wonderful events that we're doing. So thank you all.
Yes, thank you.
A Nike, a Nike, a Nike.